Andrew Colsky with Sleep Science today here. We're out at B&B Family Lavender Farm in Sequim, Washington. That's Washington State. If you see behind me, you can see all of the lavender fields. It's not quite fully in bloom yet, but they're getting ready to bloom within the next couple weeks. And they have a lot of different varieties of lavender here. So when you use the lavender spray for your pillows, when you buy any lavender type of sleep products, this is the beginning of where lavender comes from. Now we're going to take a look at the facilities today, and we'll see how they actually process the lavender and how it actually gets to you. So come on and let's see what we can see.
You're watching Sleep Science Today. If you enjoy our show, please help support us by pressing the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. It'll really help us get seen, and it'll help you stay informed.
All right, we're here with Rob from B&B Family Lavender Farm, and he's going to show us some of the farming techniques today and the different types of lavender. We're going to learn more about how it's grown and how it's harvested and how it's used, and this is going to be ultimately how it gets to you when you're the consumer. So, Rob, welcome.
There we go.
Say hello. Say hello.
All right. Well, hello, good audience. So, welcome to our wonderful lavender farm. So, we're a family-owned lavender farm. It's a family of 4 that originally bought this farm 13 years ago. You would imagine a family of 4 buying a 12-acre lavender farm. They must be excited about lavender. They must be ready for this lavender adventure. None of those things were true when they originally bought the farm. What they were looking for was a farm big enough that they could support their whole family. It was a bonus that it was lavender. But I really love that idea that they couldn't care less what they were doing as long as they could all be here doing it together. So now all 4 of those family members live right here on site. So we have Christy and Zion, and then Christy's parents, Bruce and Bonnie, which is why we're B&B Family Farm. So that's pretty sweet. But you can see we have a large farm. We have a total of 14,000 individual plants in 10 different varieties. And everything we have, we can see from our vantage point right here. Now, there's a reason there's so many lavender farms that have chosen Sequim to grow their crops. That reason is we have a very unique ecosystem here. Now, our climate is driven by this big, gorgeous Olympic mountain range behind me here. Those mountains cast what we call a rain shadow. What that means is a big wall of mountain effectively blocks a lot of those clouds coming our way. So to be minutes away from rainforest and Olympic National Park on the western side of Washington, where you expect it to be very rainy, we only get about 16 inches of rain per year, which is incredibly low considering what you'd expect. That's exactly why lavender was originally brought in. As a plant that wants a bunch of sun and a little rain, we just have that perfect climate for it. So when we initially plant a new field of lavender, we only water those plants for the first 6 months they're in the ground, and then we just don't water them anymore ever again. So if we look at this field that's out by the road to your left, that Grosso is 28 years old this year, wow, which is awesome. We have a commercial plant, perennial, that's been there for 30 years. We haven't watered that field in 27 years. Wow. We're also a certified organic farm, so there's no pesticides, fertilizers, any kind of soil nutrients or chemicals. So the only thing that field has seen for almost 30 years is a little bit of rainwater from the sky. So those farmers 30 years ago, as they planted these fields, knew it was going to do well, and they were sure right about it. So the growing lavender isn't the hard part of what we do, it's everything else that happens on a farm. So we'll come out in the summer, usually starting the 1st of July, and we're going to start our harvest process. We can see as we look in the fields, different varieties mature at different times. So we're not coming out to harvest everything all at once. We're reactively harvesting bits and pieces as we progress through that season. So that's good for us. It spreads out our workload so we don't have to harvest everything all at once. But obviously, because we have so many tourists coming by, it means there's always pretty plants to look at no matter what time of the year you come to visit. So we'll work all summer to get all that lavender harvested. We'll come back in the fall. We're going to have to prune each of our lavender plants back. So often people are impressed that lavender just grows into this perfect shape. It doesn't. That's us with a pair of hedge trimmers. 14,000 times a year, we're hand pruning every single plant. What we want to do is really control how that plant grows. Lavender has a tendency to get really big and wild. We want to keep that in check as much as we can. So a yearly prune means it's going to be tight, compact, well-producing, all the way into almost 30 years of life in our field there. And that's the basics of a lavender field. You plant it, you water it for a couple months, and then you just harvest and prune every season past that.
So one question for you. The question I have for you is, with all these different varieties of lavender you have here, when the average consumer goes to the store and they buy a lavender spray or a lavender product, is there one of these that is the most common, or really it could be anything?
In general, so we have a French species that's called Grosso, and it's a very high producer. It produces really long stems for bundles of lavender. It's a tremendous amount of oil as we distill. So oftentimes, if a farm's only going to have a few varieties, Grosso is often the first one you plant just because of its very high production. But so we grow two different species. We have English and French lavenders. Overall, the French is about 5 times more prevalent on the global market, but under those two species, there's over 400 unique varieties. So depending on where you're growing it or what your final product is imagined to be, there could be some variety there. And so it's hard. Often people have this assumption, and I was the same way before I worked here, that lavender smells like lavender and that's all I need to know. There's a tremendous amount of different scents that are within those species, but oftentimes the French lavender you smell on any market is going to be Grosso lavender.
Okay, and then the last question is, of all the different types, what is the most expensive or the most sought after, the high end?
So what I'd tell you is, as we distill our English lavenders, there's significantly less oil in English plants than there are in French. So I'd say the English in general is a more kind of exclusive product, but really it's so driven by personal preference. It's what people want to smell, and we'll get a chance in the barn to smell how those different lavenders can be. So it's hard to say there's necessarily one that is sought after. I know, like on our farm, we have a variety called Hidcoat Pink, and it's kind of become our favorite, and it's pretty limited. We only have a few plants of it, but it's always going to depend on what your personal preference is.
Wow. Well, we're going to take a look at that when we get into the shop and into the barn. So we're going to take a break now. We're going to go do our little tour. We'll take some little shots along the way, and then we're going to go talk about the actual end product. So Rob, let's go.
All right, let's head out. All right, so as we look, we have some of our 4-inch starter plants. Now, these plants actually came from cuttings in our field. So the way that lavender is propagated is always through cuttings on the plant. Hardly ever is it germinated through seeds. And the main reason is the seeds of a lavender plant are really hard to get to germinate. And once they do sprout, there's genetic diversity in those seeds. So just because a seed comes from royal velvet doesn't mean it's going to grow a royal velvet plant. So almost exclusively, it's always through propagated lavender. But I love the idea, if you take home one of our lavender plants, it's not just a lavender plant, but it's literally a piece of our field that you get to take home and grow in your garden. I like that part. But we can see there's different or varying stages of what we see in our growth. So these stems and buds start out very small, but you can see the stems get taller, the buds get bigger. What I want to show you is this flower stage, and this is actually a really good example.
Oh wow, yeah.
So every single bud will eventually produce one cute tiny little flower. Now that flower means different things to us depending on which kind of harvest we're doing. We're going to do one of two ways of harvesting. One is we want a bundle of lavender. So we're going to come through, bundle up those stems, and make a nice little pretty bouquet out of it. For that, we're looking for about 10% flower in the field. Enough flower we know those buds are mature, not so much flower that that's primarily what we're harvesting. Most of our bundles, we want those non-flowered buds. Now later in the seasons, we're making our essential oils. We want the best yield we can get, so we're going to let them develop a lot longer in the field. So after these flowers end up wilting and falling off, a lot of that color kind of seeps out of the bud. So our distillation fields don't look especially pretty, but the extra time they've gotten to mature in the field means we're getting a far better yield of essential oils. So early season, some flower, it's bundles. Late season, all flower, it's oils.
So where does the oil come from? The flower, the stem?
So the flower is coming from in these little buds is where that develops. And we'll get a good idea. Often as you smell lavender, there's not a big scent until you start to pinch and kind of crush those buds. So it kind of comes in like its own hermetically sealed little package, but that's a good indicator. Like as you take home one of these bundles, every time you squeeze those buds, you're getting more of that scent coming out. So it's kind of a slow release on your timing, how much lavender you want to smell.
Fantastic. And this is the Fulgate variety.
Yeah.
And the Grosso.
This is that Grosso. It's that French variety we had talked about. And you can see as I talked about its different productions, these huge stems based on these kind of shorter stems on the English is one of the primary reasons we love French lavender. If you're going to make a bundle out of it, those Grossos make huge bundles. But you also notice the color in that bud is not nearly as bright as it is in that English. So that's often a good separator. If you've got really bright, vivid color, it's probably an English lavender. That softer color means it's often a French lavender.
Fantastic.
All right, well, let's head to the barn. We'll see if we can find something in there. Well, welcome to the barn. So I mentioned we harvest into bundles of lavender, and we can see what those bundles look like hanging up here on the chains. But this gives us a good opportunity. We can look at two different kinds of lavender right next to each other, and we kind of covered in the field where we have our English Royal Velvet with that really bright color, that French Grosso with this much more muted color, but also those nice long stems. I mentioned the smell is going to be unique in these, and I want to give us an opportunity to smell some of that lavender bud. So if you just hold out your hand, put some buds in there. Now, just like we talked about, if you just smell those, there's not a whole lot of scent. The key is kind of pinching and smushing those buds around to expose those oils and give us a much better scent.
Oh my God.
It's hard to describe.
It's from like nothing to
wonderful it is.
Huge
But
smell.
that English lavender, it has this really sweet, really flowery scent. So that's why we consider English lavender to be our culinary species. So anytime we're making things like lemonade, ice cream, chocolate, spice mixes, we're always going to choose that English lavender because it has that just wonderful sweet scent.
Oh, this is great.
Now, in comparison to the English, you can get rid of those buds.
Okay.
We'll try some of this French lavender. And as we smush and smell that French lavender,
So you see it's pretty bland right now in terms of color and in terms of scent, but let's smush it around. Ooh, a very different scent.
so it's a much sharper kind of medicinal or minty smell.
Yeah.
So what happens is this French species develops a lot more camphor oil inside that bud. Camphor you'd recognize in like Vicks Vapor Rub. And it's not a small difference. French lavender is about 20% camphor content. English lavender is less than 1%. So with that really strong smell, not well suited for anything culinary. Not that it would hurt you, just doesn't taste good with that camphor. So the French buds we're going to reserve more for sachets, neck pillows, drawer liners, a lot of the soaps and stuff we make, because it's got that really standout lavender smell. So it becomes easy to remember your French is a fragrant species, your English is an edible species.
Oh, okay. So this purplish one here, this would be which one again?
Royal Velvet.
Royal Velvet, and that's the English. Okay, perfect. Wow.
So we had mentioned these bundles. I want to talk about where we get these. So to harvest that in the field, you can see this harvest site that we're going to utilize. So as I mentioned, hand harvesting, it is hand harvested. So what we'll do is we'll head out to the field. We're going to gather up a handful of those stems, chop those stems off from the plant. We use a rubber band to keep those stems together, and then we just get busy hanging them up on these chains. In a given season, we'll harvest about 150,000 of these individual bundles, filling every chain in this barn at least 2 times per year. So I mentioned the different maturity rates. English lavender always comes in about a month before the French lavender. So we will fill this entire barn once with English. As we pull that down, we're going to fill it up a second time with French. We got our work cut out for us. But you can imagine coming in peak season when this is just a wall of fresh harvested lavender. Oh,
Right.
It's the best thing.
Well, how long, once you put this up, how long does it stay to dry before you take it down?
It'll take about 3 weeks, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. But especially nice summer weather like this, it happens pretty quick. Now, once they're dry, we're going to pull those bundles down. We have to sort through every single bundle we've harvested. What we're looking for is purely visual. Is it a pretty bunch or is it not a pretty bunch? We can see a difference. The English bundles look really pretty. French bundles look a little wild and crazy. That's not a reaction to the plant growing any differently. It's just that we sorted these English bundles out of the harvest last year. So obviously what we're looking for are those real nice shape, long stem, uniform shape and color. These will sell just like this. And in a given season, we'll sell about 6,000 pounds of lavender bundles like these.
Oh my God.
Now we can see looking at the French, while some of those are very pretty, we've got other ones that are a little wild and crazy. So the ones we don't deem sellable, of course we want to process. Now to process and get those buds off the stem, we use this machine on the other side of the barn, what we call Mr. Buddy. Now, Mr. Buddy is our one and only debudding machine, obviously a custom piece of farm implement here. What he's got inside his mouth are plastic chimney brushes. And you can see what that brush looks like here. So as we turn this machine on, those brushes are going to spin. And you can imagine as we feed that bundle in, that brush is going to pull all that bud material off. But let's not use words. Let's just show you what that looks like. So if I were to take this mini bundle of lavender and I turn our machine on, feed that into Buddy, pull it out with all those buds.
Oh, look at that.
So being this is our only machine, we'll debud somewhere around 70,000 of those bundles each season, which is why we had to make this job fun. Otherwise, you start to lose your mind. But if you're just feeding your buddy. So stems at this point, we don't care about stems. We're going to compost those in a big pile out back. Of course, what we're after is that bud that's come off the stem.
Wow.
Now in this phase, we call this dirty bud because it's dirty. That brush pulls off more plant than we want. So sticks and stems and dust and who knows. So before this is viable for any of our uses, of course, we have to clean all that junk out. Now to clean our buds, we're going to take that tub and load it through our big machine back here in the corner. Now this is what we call our jitter bud. The jitter bud was originally built in the 1950s, and it wasn't designed to sort lavender, it was designed to sort anything, primarily seeds and grains. So it's not a unique piece of equipment. There's a lot of farms that use this for a lot of things. We're the only farm on the Olympic Peninsula using one of these for lavender, which is kind of cool. So it starts by filling up that tub with 25 pounds of dirty bud. From there, we're going to carry it up this wooden staircase and dump all 25 pounds in the very top hopper of this machine above me. From there, that material is gravity fed through 5 different metal screens here in these wooden boxes on the right, and then 2 big round blowers here on the left. So as that material works through, the screens are sorting by size, the blowers are sorting by weight, fairly straightforward in its operation. These trash cans you see are going to fill up with all that stuff we don't want, and there's 3 green bins out back that capture all the stuff we do want. Now I want to show you examples of what that material is, but first, what do you say we fire this thing up and see what happens?
All right, cool.
So I just think it's really cool. Not only do we have a 7-year-old machine that's still standing, but how well it's able to sort without us having to do much with it. Now, if we pull out these buckets, this is a good example of material we're removing from our lavenders. So on this stage, this is more that air stage. So it's a lot of light, fluffy little bits. Remember, as we harvested that field, we had a fair bit of flour. All that flour is getting blown out on that air stage. This is more of that screen sort where we're getting those big pieces of stick and stem, those immature buds that were a little too big or a little too small. Now, anytime we load material in, we expect to remove about 10% by weight. So if we put in 20 pounds of dirty bud, we'll often get about 18 pounds back, which on the surface doesn't sound like that much material. Like 2 pounds couldn't make that much of a difference. But if we take a look at our before and after, this is that dirty bud. And it's just what we saw at the debutter, where you've got all that junk that's present in there. And especially after seeing some of that, you can notice all that little junk that was in there, of course, compared to our clean final product.
Wow.
And this is just remarkable how the 7-year-old machine can do such a good job removing all that stuff we don't want, leaving just these buds behind.
And this stuff, I got to tell you, you know, you're listening to this and you're watching, but the scent and the aroma that comes out of this bin is just, oh my God, it's really amazing.
So we'll clean our French lavender like this. I also have a good example of our English lavender.
Oh, wow.
With
Look
that
how
just
purple.
gorgeous color in there.
Beautiful.
So in a given season, we'll clean about 4,000 pounds of bud like this. That's somewhere around 180 of these big plastic bins there. So we're largely a wholesale farm. Most of the plants we grow end up being sent out either as sorted field bunches or those buds that we're going to clean and ship out. Of course, the third component of what we do back here are copper stills. This is where we make all of our essential oils each season. Now, the reason we have 2 stills is kind of a lapse in judgment. When we first bought the farm, we thought this small still was all we were going to need. We were wrong. Next year, we bought a much larger still. So same in functionality, difference in size. Where this process begins is we wait till that lavender gets all flowered out. We go up and just harvest the very top part of that stem this time. We're going to bring all this fresh material directly to the still. So contrary to the process we've seen, we're not banding it, hanging it, drying it, debudding it, cleaning it. We're just bringing all that material straight in. Now, before we pack our still, we'll take our copper screen like this. We'll put that right in the bottom of that still. So that allows us to fill up water underneath and then jam pack as much possible bud as we can fit in on top. All said and done, we'll will fit about 10 whole plants of lavender bud in the small still, around 50 entire plants in the large still. So if you're doing that mental math, we're getting a bunch of material packed in. Once it's packed, we're going to heat up that water. That water will generate steam. As that steam rises up in that bud, that high temperature actually vaporizes those oils that we're after. Then that steam carries that oil through the swan neck down here through the condenser. Now the condenser,
I'm going to take a look. Yeah,
has this cool design. So you've got that tube that spirals its way all the way to the bottom, finally ends by popping out the front side. Now on the back, we have this hose bib. We're going to use that to cycle cold water through that basin the whole time we run that still. So what we're trying to do is take all that hot steam and vapor in the tube, cool it back down to the liquid as it comes out. Now, as we're getting our product, we actually get two things at the same time. One is that essential oil that we're after. Second is this byproduct called lavender hydrosol, or lavender water. Now, this started as that normal tap water we added in here. As we steamed it through the plant, first we sterilized it. It's distilled water, but we picked up the properties of lavender through anything water soluble that was in that material. So it's like an enriched water. So the big difference between these isn't in their properties, it's going to be in their smell. This will be hard to capture on camera, but we'll see how good you can describe it. So this is that same French grosso that we've smelled in the buds, but just a very concentrated oil version. Oh, that is just wonderful.
You know, it's I don't even know how to describe it, because from all the different stages we've gone through here and the buds that we were looking at and everything else, the aroma of lavender within this barn itself is just, I don't want to say overpowering, because that sounds bad. It's wonderful. It's you just want to fall asleep in the barn, actually.
It's the hardest part of my job, is to sleeping when I'm in here. So of course, a lot of people know lavender oil because it smells wonderful, because it's so calming and relaxing. A lot of folks don't realize you can use our oils directly on your skin as well. So as well as antibacterial, it's anti-inflammatory. So bug bites, bee stings, sunburns, does a really good job calming that skin down. On the other side, we have our hydrosol, which I would argue smells wonderful, but it's very different in the vein of what we've been smelling so far. And if you think about that smell we're used to being the oils, the hydrosol kind of carries the rest of that plant smell. So it's got a sweetness, but also kind of this sort of funky, raw sort of smell.
Yeah, I can't even think of words to describe it.
Now, often, as we're in the store, we'll see a lot of witch hazel for sale. Witch hazel is another hydrosol that was created in the exact same way. So anytime you distill some kind of raw plant, you're always going to get this water byproduct that carries the parent properties. So this also antibacterial, antimicrobial, works really well as a facial toner, as a makeup remover. Anywhere on the hair and skin, it does really well. You can make it make your own cleaning products at home. We use it for our all-purpose cleaner in the shop. But at home, I put it in my laundry. I'll put it in my bath water. So it's a cool way to get that antibacterial lavender property easily worked into other facets of your life.
So now, is this typically used in and of itself, or is it typically used as an additive to things?
Yes. So it works really well like as a facial toner. We just sell little spray bottles in the shop, and you just spritz, but also like as a base for those cleaning products or fun sprays and stuff like that. So both ways, however you want to work that in.
Wonderful.
So, like I said, as we distill, we get hydrosol and oil coming out at the same time. If we switch to our large still, you can see we drain from our condenser to this glass separatory funnel. We've actually left some oil and hydrosol in there so you can see what happens. Now, we don't do anything special to separate those. It's just different densities in those liquids. It means they're going to naturally separate out. So once separated, we're going to open that valve. We're going to drain the hydrosol out, leaving just those oils behind.
Wow.
Now, the oils in this stage are often pretty dirty because they're a thicker liquid. They tend to carry a lot of stuff through this process. We use a very sophisticated system of this plastic funnel with a cotton ball jammed in the end. It's super high-tech lavender stuff. But if we can see, the top side of that cotton ball grabs quite a bit of particulate and junk as it goes through. And then, of course, our clean oils fall into that vessel underneath. And now we're ready. We can bottle and sell those oils the same day we distilled. So in the span of 5 or 6 hours, we can go from a plant growing in the field to an oil selling in the shop, which is pretty remarkable.
Okay, so now you've made fresh oil. How long is oil good for?
Depends how you're using it. So what I tell you, like in this bottle, is a sterile oil that we put into a sterile bottle. So if you just leave that, it's UV protected. In theory, that oil would never go bad. Often what's going to happen is you're going to open that oil, you're going to touch it to your skin. That's going to introduce that outside microbe in there. Now, as much oil as I use, I've never had an issue with it going bad, but conceivably, if your oil starts to smell a little funny, it's often because something else has been introduced to it.
So if somebody has a lavender pillow spray, for example, that they're using, does it expire, or what should they look for?
I would think the time frame it would take for that to start to go bad, often you're going to use that a lot quicker than that would come up. So it's not really an issue that we think much about. But I mean, conceivably, yes, it could go bad. The chances of you holding on to it that long, I think, is pretty slim.
Right. Great. Wow.
So a couple things that I didn't tell you. So as we talk about our stills, remember it took 10 plants to fill this small still. The amount of oil we get varies depending on which kind of lavender we use. The French species always outproduce the English, but each variety is a little different. So 10 plants at best, which would be that grosso, will produce about 10 ounces or 60 of these small bottles. So you can look at it like in a field of grosso, it's about 1 ounce for every plant that's in the field. Now, English produce significantly less. 10 plants of Mayette would give us just 6 of these bottles, or 1 single ounce. So it's often striking just to think of how many of those English plants we need to make a little bit of this precious oil.
Right.
The other cool thing is you notice we have copper stills. That was a choice that we made when we shopped for stills. Copper actually cleans our oil for us. So lavender is fairly high in sulfur, which you wouldn't notice on the plant side, but once you start to really concentrate those oils in a stainless steel still, you wouldn't smell lavender, you would just smell that sulfur. What's cool is sulfur and copper have a cool relationship such that as we're vaporizing those oils, those sulfur molecules bind to the copper on the inside of that still, creating a copper sulfide. What that means is as that oil comes out, it smells just like it should, no sulfur, and that's the reason we can sell our oils the same day, is we use that copper to go ahead and clean that out for us.
Wow.
And I also love how old these look. If I were to tell you that these were the original stills over 100 years old, you'd believe it.
Right.
And I like that this all fits into kind of that old-timey vibe that we've tried to make.
Wow. So let's walk over to this one here for a second. I see this one, obviously much bigger, has these ripples and fold. What is that intentional? Is that just the way it was made?
I suppose there's 2 answers I could give you. The first one would be yes, it's intentional, and that's just how old stills look. We had a fun lesson in this part being hot and adding cold water in the top. As that cold water filled up this channel and sealed it, we sandwiched it. So we had to kind of bang it out. But I like that it now looks all weathered and cute. I don't know if I'm supposed to be telling you that's what happened.
No, but it looks great because you've got the old separator machine over there that we start with in the old historic barn, and now you got this. It just all fits.
Looks like a very old machine. So I appreciate, what we're doing with lavender isn't that much different than what they've always done with it. And I just like that connection to the past, where anytime in the last 2,000 years, if you harvested a bundle of lavender, you've done what we do every day. And I like that industry hasn't changed much, that we're still in connection with the same way the Romans would have used it to add it to their baths. We're still doing that out here.
Fantastic. All right, well, we're going to take a break and we're going to go into the shop and then we'll see what the final product looks like.
You're watching Sleep Science Today. If you enjoy our show, please help support us by pressing the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. It'll really help us get seen, and it'll help you stay informed.
So these little guys pull out. And so we talked about how different each lavender species, each lavender variety can smell, but it's really fun just to see how different some of those lavenders can be, even though they're very similar plants.
So you got 2 French, but most of the rest are English. Is that like, why aren't there more French varieties, or it just is what it is?
And so that's the breakdown. That's the plants we've chosen to grow. So we really like that English scent, and there's a lot of variety within that. Often because the French lavenders are so high in camphor, it's often hard to tell those kind of little nuanced smells. But we really like, just for the visual in the field, because those English lavenders have that really bright color, it's fun to have those bright colors stand out. But part of the reason we grow the varieties we grow is driven by the market, by our personal preference. But like being a wholesale farm, we largely just grow Royal Velvet and Grosso. So that's over half of what we grow is just in those 2 varieties. So as we do our bundles and our buds, it's those 2 varieties that we're able to offer. With the other ones, they're almost exclusively essential oils. So as we sell our oils, we always like to have a nice diverse array so folks can find exactly the scent that they want to take home and fall asleep to.
Wow. So in reality, beyond what you're growing here, there's still even more varieties.
400 plus unique varieties of lavender.
Oh my gosh, 400 plus. Never would have known.
And it's fun. So as they've hybridized these over the years, some they hybridized so they could get a different color, or there was a certain scent they were going after. Nowadays, there's more and more that are hybridized for specific growing conditions, right? So those that get a hard freeze or a long winter have been able to hybridize plants that do better there than they would be here. So it's a common question we get. Hey, I live in Florida. What plant can I take home to Florida to grow? We always try to send you to a local nursery or greenhouse because they're going to know which ones match your growing conditions that you have out there.
Right.
But it's always fun. I mean, people come from around the world, and it's fun to hear their stories of, oh, I'm in Michigan and we grow this kind of lavender. And it's just cool to see something that's so widely spread. It's just people enjoying this wonderful plant.
So I have to say, as we're standing here talking, if you look around the shop, there's all these different products, and we can look at those in a second, but as we were talking about it, I was looking in front of me, and if you take a look over here, there's something called the Sleepy Time set. So can you tell us what's in the Sleepy Time set?
Sure. So we're always trying to explore new products to bring in the shop and then ways to combine those products into something fun and usable. So in our Sleepy Time set, we include, if I can maybe just open this up, we'll take a look. So we have one of our lavender sleep masks, which is a product we sew right here on site, and we just fill that with lavender bud. So as you get ready, you can warm it up in the microwave like you would a heating pad. You just lay that on your face. The smell, the warmth, the heat, the weight, just a great way to kind of start to put you to sleep. And then to pair that, we also throw in one of our lavender mists. So it's a combination. We've got some hydrosol, some lavender oil, some lemongrass oil. And so that's a way you could spray your bedding down with a wonderful scent, lay down with your essential oil behind your ears, your sleep mask on your face, and then you are knocked out.
So let me throw in a tip here. One of the tips about lavender is if you're using this at home in your own bed, and when it's time for you to go to bed, you now smell that lavender, you start to create this relationship in your mind, it means it's time to sleep. Now, go to travel, maybe you're on a different time zone or something. If you bring this with you and use the very same exact scent, you're going to be triggering that thought in your mind that it's sleep time, and that's going to help you adjust to those time zones.
Which again is the hard part of my job, is it always smells like it's time for bed.
So, all right, so tell us, out of all the different types of products that you have in here, what are the most popular and what are the most unique?
Oh man, there's some good ones. It's hard. I often get asked this question, and before I know it, I'm just naming every product we have because they're all so wonderful. One of my all-time favorites, being a farmer, is we make this Gardener's hand cream. So it's a shea butter base with just a number of fun things in there. And so for those dry, cracked kind of work hands during the day, a good layer of that at night really kind of rejuvenates. But in the same tone, we offer just our normal lavender lotion. And this is one of the few products we actually divide in the scent. So we make one with French and we make one with English, just so folks kind of get that scent that they desire. But overall, we're using French in most of our products just because of that really strong smell. Right. But in that same vein, Gardener's hand cream for your hands, funky feet cream for your feet. So things like athlete's foot or kind of odors and that kind of stuff. That funky feet is an incredible combination of ingredients that fight all that kind of fungal funk that you can develop. But then moving down, so we make our own soap bars. So we have our lavender lemon oatmeal, which includes this oatmeal as kind of that scrubby as you've got it in the shower there. But then also that lavender gardenia, and then always trying to push like, okay, we'll do a full bar in our own little scrubby bag. But then of course we'll do the mini bars, so you can kind of give those out as gifts or kind of siphon that through. If you don't like soap bars, of course we have our Sudsy Thyme body wash, which is lavender, blueberry, and thyme. A little lavender essential oil massage oil. We've got the beard oils and the aftershaves for the gentleman, the fairy fizz and the bath bombs if you want to spice up your bath life. I mean, so it's kind of a little bit of everything. Christy has done very well just combining all of these products into so many cool usable things.
Yeah.
So you'll find our shop is divided. We have the touch section, which is a lot of those lotions and soaps. We have the smell section kind of throughout the center. So we had already touched on like the lavender eye pillows.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Just that pillow filled with lavender bud. Over here are lavender sleep masks. So it's that mask with that nice soft fabric on one side, the strap. And what we've done here, instead of just stuffing lavender inside, we've made basically these little tea bags with lavender bud. So after you smush them and you get your sleep, it's really easy. Through the fold in the mask, you can pop that bag out and then just refresh with one of the refills to keep that going. Because that's often like with a sachet of lavender, which we have kind of back here, which is a very common way to get that lavender smell. It's just those French buds that we put in that. As you pinch them, it's going to rejuvenate that smell, but eventually you'll pinch all those oils out. So for things like our lavender eye mask or our dryer balls, is a really good way you can actually recycle out. So that's our little dryer bags.
Cool.
So you throw that in your dryer for the last couple of minutes of that heat cycle, but once those run out, you can just buy those refills and keep that going in there.
Oh, okay. So if you're taking your blanket or your duvet cover or even your pillow covers and they're in the dryer, pop one of these things in there and now it's just infused. Wow. Wonderful. You know, that's another thing that's important that I never knew is the fact that you have to pinch and kind of pull the oils out if you're really going to get it. I thought you just hold on to it and there it is. But
this is why we take lavender tours.
Yes.
But then one of our fun additions last year was our super wolf wash. So it's not just humans that can enjoy that scent. Of course, great for your dog on that. We have our all-purpose cleaner, which again, we use the hydrosol as the base on the other side. But then we've tried to include some things we don't make here. So we partnered with a local lady that makes these candles. So it's 3 different scents in the candle. The day in Sequim is fun. It combines all 3 of those scents. So as you're burning your candle, you're getting those different scents as you go through.
Nice.
And of course, if you just want to make your own products, of course, we're just going to sell bud in varying sizes. So anywhere from a quarter pound to a full pound, take those buds home and kind of do whatever you want with them. One of my favorites, my grandma taught me, when you're getting ready to vacuum your carpet, you just go through, sprinkle some of that grosso bud on the carpet, stomp it around a little bit, vacuum that up. Your carpet smells like lavender. Your vacuum smells like lavender. You can't go wrong with that stuff. But then, of course, you notice like the art that we've got, which one of the owners actually takes a lot of photographs, but we always try to find local artists that have a good cause, that do good work, and we try to kind of bring that in. So more than just us being just a shop where you buy things, we try to view it more as a community center. So this is just as much anyone's as it is ours, and it's a fun place to bring in those different personalities and different kinds of art.
Well,
And
there's
then-
one other, I was going to say,
Yep, most
we
importantly,
have to get to the taste
The
section.
taste section. So we had talked about culinary lavender and just its wide range of uses. So of course, starting, you can just buy our culinary lavender buds that we've cleaned in that jitterbud for use in your own recipes. One of our employees has branched out and started making our jam. So we have a lavender pear and a blueberry lemon lavender that are absolutely amazing. Again, partnered with a local tea lady that makes our lemon lavender chamomile tea. Of course, our honey comes from our beehives that we keep on property. So we keep our own honeybees. We don't need them as part of our growing process, but if we run a flower farm, it makes sense to have bees. And of course, we get to harvest that pure lavender honey at the end of the season. But then things like our sugar blend is a wonderful addition, as is our spice blend, kind of in the realm of herbs de Provence. And so it's this wonderful blend of vanilla bean and cardamom and lavender and organic sugar. We partnered with Intrigue Chocolates out of Seattle to make our lavender chocolate bars. We've got our lavender simple syrups. And then, of course, not to be missed, lavender ice cream, lavender lemonade.
Okay. So because we're looking at these things and making this, the honey, for example, you're talking about the bees, are there male and female lavender plants?
No.
Okay. I know some plants, because you need the bees, you got to be able, okay, got it.
Yeah, and honestly, we don't need bees to pollinate our fields. The lavender would do just fine without them. We just feel like it's incumbent if the bees are having a hard time when you're on a flower farm, we should probably have more bees.
Right.
Plus, just to wander in the field, you're getting that scent, you're seeing the color, and have millions of bees just buzzing everywhere. Pretty hard to get that relaxed anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my goodness, thank you so much for
welcome,
such a
Andrew.
wonderful
I'm so
tour,
glad you
Rob.
guys came by today.
This is great, and I have to spend some more time on my own, just kind of smelling on here and take a walk in the fields, because to come all the way out here, we're all the way in the tip of Washington State in a town called Sequim, which is not spelled that way. It's spelled Sequim, right? I'm sure there's a story behind that, but that's a story for a different day. So thanks for joining us here on Sleep Science Today. We'll bring to you some extra tips along with this video. Start the video. Okay, we are here with Christy. She's one of the owners of B&B Family Lavender Farm. We've taken the tour, we've smelled the lavender, which is just beautiful. But Christy, tell us a little bit about how did you come to own the farm, and what is it like to run a lavender farm?
So really this was a means to an end. The goal was to get our family all into one location, my mom and dad and my sister who lives in the next town over. We wanted to all live in the same place and raise our kiddos together, and the lavender farm kind of met all of our needs to be able to do that. And we didn't come here searching for lavender or a lavender farm, but we're really glad we landed here, and it's been amazing. I get to have my family all together in the same place, being outside all the time, raising my kids on a farm, and it's been an amazing, unexpected detour in my journey.
I have to guess that even though you've got kids, the kids and everybody else are probably calm all the time, because you can't help to be in this environment and be mad or angry or upset with somebody.
I do feel like it probably has an influence. I would like to believe that, but I will not claim that my children are always calm.
They're still going to be kids, but
they're still kids. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But they're good kids.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this has been an amazing tour for us. I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to meet you, the actual owner of the farm, and thank you for making this available to us and to letting us kind of show the world what lavender is like from production to final product.
Absolutely. We love to share it, and we love that people get to come and experience and see all of it. So thanks for coming.
Thank you.
If you're having trouble sleeping and you need support, don't go it alone. Join us at our free online support group at sleepsupportgroup.com. Just put in your email address, sign up for the list, and you will be notified of all of our upcoming meetings. It's free, so why not try it out?